globalization and the important theories of globalization. While discussing about the important theories of globalization, I have discussed about neoliberal theories or neoliberal ideas about globalization and what is neoliberalism. The very important point about Marxian orientation to understand globalizations or understanding any social issues is considered to be very important, because Marx or Marxian ideas gives a new orientation to look at the largely Marxism is understood as an economic interpretation or economic determinism of understanding society. That means how economy is important in the context of understanding social relations. But if you take this particular point and examine it from a global or from globalization perspective, so globalization has three essential features, that is about LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. The end product is globalization. But initially starts with liberalization. Liberalization of what? Liberalization of trade, liberalization of commerce, liberalization of policies, liberalization of import and export policies, by which we can give a boost to trade and commerce. So essentially what does it indicate? It indicates is the economic phenomenon. So therefore, largely globalization is an economic phenomenon. Of course, it has social, cultural, political implications, but the impetus, the tools, or you can say the transforming agencies are largely economic. So therefore, Marx or Marxian theories is very important to understand the process of globalization. Of course, when we talk about Marx, of course, that time globalization was not there, but there are many Marxist scholars, or there are many other scholars also, those who analyzed, interpret the social phenomenon in the context of neo-colonialism, or that means if you have taken, last time I discussed about colonialism, or before that I have discussed, there are many other agencies, those who work at global level. If you look at the history, you will find these processes are not new. But the term globalization was not there, but the activities, the processes, maybe the nuances, maybe the features were different. But there were some scholars argue that this is a kind of globalization which was there earlier, but not in the name of globalization. But there is a difference between Marxism and neo-Marxism. But the core of Marxism continues while understanding society in a neo-Marxian perspective. But in the context of globalizations, why we discuss only neo-Marxism? Why not Marxism as such? Because when Marx has written his magnum opus volumes, that time the process of globalization was not there. But he talked about exploitation, he talks about many things. But these features what Marx has highlighted, this was further taken care by many recent scholars. Therefore, we call them as neo-Marx. Of course, while discussing with theory paper, I have dealt with many neo-Marxist scholars. Essentially, globalization is based on capitalism, and the neoliberal scholars try to support capitalism, but the neo-Marxists are critical about it. That means one ideological framework where capitalism is being promoted, is being highlighted, is being projected, is being considered as better alternative or better model to understand society or better the social relationship. But neo-Marxists are critical about the phenomena of capitalism. But I don't know exactly, is there any solutions, is there any alternatives? You must think about it, if at all, is there any kind of solutions to this. But there are scholars those who say that capitalism needs to be re-examined, capitalism needs to be recontextualized, I think, look at from a different perspective. So what I have said about Leslie Clare distinguish between two systems of globalization which I have discussed earlier. I think the first one is about neoliberal capitalist system of globalization, and the other one is about the socialist system of globalization. what I have discussed last time. When you talk about the socialist orientation of globalization, what Clare is trying to highlight, largely it is about the human rights movement. It is about human values oriented development. So therefore, what Leslie Clare is trying to talk about two system of globalization. One is capitalist system of globalization. The other one is the socialist system of globalization, where human rights aspect, human values, human face with the process of globalization is being highlighted, is being discussed. The second important point what I have discussed earlier, that is about the nation state remains important in his view. That means when you talk about the process of globalization, the nation states are very, very important. There is a linkage between this orientation of neo-Marxism with the Marxism as such. Marx talks about importance of state, importance of nation state. You cannot ignore the importance of nation state. So therefore, here the scholars like Leslie Clare talks about the importance of nation state. Why it is important? The notion of nation state is important because when we are talked about transnational practices or transnational activities, so I think without taking the state into confidence or without the support of state, these transnational activities cannot be done. So therefore, the nation state is at the core of the phenomenon. So therefore, I think it supports the traditional orientation of Marxism, giving importance to nation state. While talking about the importance of nation state, I think I discussed about transnational corporations. I also discussed about transnational capitalist class. I think up to that I discussed last time, but let me repeat what is this transnational corporation and what is this transnational capitalist class, and then culture, ideology of consumerism. I'll also come to that point little later. So what is called this transnational corporation? Globalization always act through its agents like MNCs, multinational corporations. But what is called this multinational corporations, MNCs? So multinational corporations means corporate houses have spread their wings across the globe. It is not within a particular country. It may have started with a particular country, but it has spread its wings to different parts of the world. Therefore, that they are called multinationals, MNCs. So therefore, the MNCs are transnational corporations. What does it mean? Transnational corporation means they are originated or they have started a particular kind of activities, maybe in particular nations, but they're spreading their wings to different parts of the world. So therefore, capitalism has moved away from being an international system to being a globalized system that is decoupled with many geographic territory or nation state. What does it mean? It means it is not international. There is a difference between international system and transnational systems. So therefore, they are transnational. See, the terms, earlier this transnational term was not very, very popular, but nowadays it is transnational. It's not international. So there is a difference between international and transnational. So the agencies, those who operate at different level of global society. And in that way, capitalism has also moved from one nation to another nation, moved from one geographical areas to different geographical areas. So globalizing system. So capitalism is no more capitalism confined to a particular nation state. It is a globalizing system. And the agencies or the agents of this globalization are multinational corporations and MNCs. They are known as transnational corporations. Actually, globalization operates through transnational corporations or multinational corporations. So we call about transnational also, we call about multinational. That means the people, those who are associated with that particular agency, they are from different nations. So they are from multinational. And secondly, they not only operate in a particular part of the world, they operate at different parts. So they are MNCs and they are transnational corporations. The second important point about transnational practices is political, and it refers to transnational capitalist class which is predominant. That means how these transnational corporations operate. The transnational corporates operates with transnational capitalist class. These transnational corporations have a political orientation and they manage politics of different nations. But here it's very difficult to justify in what way they operate. But they certainly operate. You have to understand what is called this transnational capitalist class. You can understand this transnational class as corporate executives. So MNCs operates through transnational class, otherwise known as the corporate executives. These corporate executives or this transnational class does not necessarily own the means of production. Rather, the means of production is owned by somebody else. So they were appointed by maybe by the person of those who own the means of production. The first point you have to keep in mind: the traditional Marxism and the neo-Marxism in the context of globalization, that the corporate executives, the transnational capitalist class, does not own the means of production. Rather, they act like a corporate executive. Secondly, the transnational capitalist class may not be capitalist in a traditional sense, but you try to look at the capitalist class and the features of capitalist class, but you certainly find a difference between the traditional capitalist class, because what are the features of traditional capitalist class? I think it is essentially about ownership means of production. It is about three things: land, labor, and capital. But I think these features are not, you'll find not exactly here. You can find capitalism, you can find capital here, but not land. Here, technology is very important. Or the person is the owner of the company or the agency which activate or which operates, they tries to support R&D, research and development, and that research and development also requires capital. So through the R&Ds, that means they need to create technology. So there is a difference. Maybe in the traditional capitalist framework, land, labor, and capital were there, but here the land, labor, capital is there, but not exactly land and labor. It has much more towards R&D, much more towards technology, much more towards corporations, which is and the other aspect of it is about the financing. That means may not be a particular person who is financing the company. There are you must be knowing about the share contributions and shareholders, features of shareholders. The example is if you try to find a job in a multinational corporation. So the MNCs, specifically the global outreach MNCs, they give you a salary, but they give you many things, not in terms of salary, but part of the salary. Like they will give you some shares, they will give some incentives, they will give something like this. So they will give you 1 lakh rupees salary, for example, but they will give maybe debenture, or they will give some shares to you, which you can only get it in cash, maybe up to 4 years or 5 years, as long as you are part of that company. That means it is not that you are contributing in that particular MNCs or working in that particular MNCs, but slowly these shares will give you a feeling that I am also part of this particular company because I hold little, maybe 0.2% ownership I have. So it's a kind of situations where this transnational capitalist class functions, and it creates this kind of orientation. The second, maybe the characteristics of this transnational class, what I have discussed last time, is about they share a global interest. The members of this transnational class share a global interest. Share a global interest means what? It means they think about their company in terms of global society or in terms of global outreach. As a student of sociology, you must look at this particular phenomena. How long we think about our village, how long we think about our caste, how long we think about the university where we have studied, how long we think about our state, how long we think about our nation, then about global. But this is a reverse about the corporate class. The corporate class think in a global phenomena means how to make a global reach and how to maximize the profit at global level. The other point is about they exert various types of control across the nation. That means this transnational capitalist class, they tries to do certain activities on the basis of which they tries to control across the nations, means how the local phenomena are influencing the government and how their business are going to be influenced by the local phenomenon and how the local phenomenon is being taken care by the government or the state government and how these local phenomena are impacting on the national politics and how it has a global consequence. So they examine all these things, meaning thereby they tries to exert some kind of control across the nations through many means. In other words, they tries to exert economic control in the workplace, and they also tries to go for political control in both domestic and international politics. And thirdly, they also tries to culture and ideological control rather than a local perspective on a wide range of issues. What does it mean? But I am saying that how these cultural ideological controls and how these political controls, how these economic controls are being controlled by the executive class or by this transnational capitalist class, but certainly it has an impact on smaller section of the society. The point I am trying to say, these transnational corporations or the transnational class tries to give a political control, tries to economic control also, and the cultural ideological control is also very important. Now, what is called this ideological control and what is called this cultural control? Cultural, as it has been said, the definition of culture, the E.V. Tyler's definition of culture is a complex whole which is related with customs, traditions, laws, institutions, and so on and so forth. But if you make a reference to globalization, I think it is creating a new kind of culture. And the culture and the ideology is based on consumerism. So it's about consumeristic culture. A new kind of custom is emerging out of it. And a new kind of cultural nuances are also created out of it. For example, these banks nowadays, for example, they have created a database, and if it is your birthday, so you'll get a message from them. Nobody bothers, but nowadays banks, since they have created such kind of technology, so through that technology you get a message that this is your birthday and this and that. What does it mean? What does it imply? It implies that the bank where you are associated, they are concerned about you because you are their respected customers, and they tries to take care of your emotions. So by taking care of emotions or by taking care of these small activities or important milestones in your life, they tries to communicate with you by which you are reconnected with that particular. So that means what does it mean? It exactly means that this cultural ideological situations are being created and you are identified, you are attached with these kind of corporate houses and they take care of you and your emotions. So slowly, what exactly you try to do? Create a kind of ideology by which you will try to put yourself in that particular framework. So therefore, they create a global desire to consume things. You know how, in which way consumerism has been extended, which has scattered the nuances of development, which has scattered the nuances of the traditional notion of development. Because you are always feeling hallucinated, or you are always feeling that you are always in deficit, or always lack of having certain products at your disposal. That means if you have a mobile today and the mobile which you have, you are not happy with that, because there is a newer version of mobile which is there in the market and you feel that I don't have it. So this kind of orientation is being created, because every alternate day you have some products in the market, and the way they create this kind of products, you feel like, or automatically within 1 or 2 years, or within 3-4 years, it is discarded. So you have to go for a new one. So the point I'm trying to say, they create a global desire to consume, and the most important means to spread this consumeristic orientation and culture is through media, it is through internet, it is through your TV advertisement. The products are not there in the market, but it is there in the TV advertisements. But how they try to penetrate into your personal life, in your life, and I think that is more important. So ideologically also you are settled, you are guided by such principles. So the critical aspects, even the universities also nowadays, they don't try to give a critical analysis or give a critical orientation to their students, which is quite unfortunate. What exactly I mean to say, that the critical aspect is missing in our activities. You know, what Claire is trying to talk about, the relationship among the transnational social practices and the institutions that dominate each, by arguing that transnational corporations utilize the transnational capitalist class to develop and solidify the consumeristic culture and ideology. What does it mean? That means transnational social practices and institutions are interrelated with each other. Transnational social practices and institutions. These institutions and these transnational social practices create a consumeristic culture and ideology. They try to develop and solidify the consumeristic culture and ideology. Unless until this consumeristic class are being perpetuated or are being given a push, then there is a chance of dismantling or shattering the interest of capitalist class. What does it mean? Let us take the example of the Jio, for example. You know, this Jio has started with giving free SIMs to the people, and maybe it continued for more than 2 years, that no need to pay anything to take the Jio SIM, and start talking to your friends and engage yourself in being connected with your family, friends, whatever it may be. But after 2 or 3 years, that means during these 2-3 years, you have developed a habit to or used to these kind of practices. So once you are in their trap, if I use, see, right, the personal life is so much full of traps. So you are in trap, this particular trap of consumerism, or you develop the habits to be in touch with your friends without spending money. But after 2 years, 3 years, now they have started charging. This class is being developed to solidify the consumeristic culture. That means you are in this particular trap, and you are now not in a position to come out of this trap. So therefore, the consumerism is created such nuances where you or your activities are being solidified. Clear? So the point I'm trying to say, that it creates such kind of solidified situations and consumeristic culture and ideology. So therefore, that demands the capitalist system for more production. That means the capitalist system will
produce more, and they tries to create such kind of situation where your demands are solidified and you are in that particular track. Of course, what as a Marxist scholar, Clare is not only interested in critically analyzing these capitalist globalizations, but in articulating an alternative to it and its abuses. That means, as a Marxist scholar, he is trying to say what are the alternatives you have and what are the human rights issues or what are the abusive issues or how your uh, as a consumer how you are being put into such kind of harassment. I think all these issues he is also trying to highlight. He talks about human rights movement in which he believes that it is the seeds of the alternative to neoliberal capitalist globalization. The human rights movements are the seeds of the alternative to neoliberal capitalist globalization. That means neoliberal capitalist globalization is the seed to such issues or the important elements of an alternative is the issues of human rights. And of course, there are many human rights violations which is being happening across the globe. I think that is a threat to neoliberal capitalist globalization, but it is also suggesting a kind of alternative to neoliberal capitalism, not in a very nuanced alternative, but somehow, somewhere you are understanding there are some issues of human rights, there is some issues where you are being treated as a consumer and your consumer values are being abused. So therefore, some kind of alternative or some kind of critical aspect you can say is attached with this notion. So therefore, what he's trying to say that in 21st century there is lot of resistance which is taking place across the globe, and really that is in some way or other a threat to transnational capitalism, but not in a very big way, but somehow questioning their afraid.